Hey, gang. Pamela, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I see Jason's on. That's good. He's just getting his audio set up, I think. And I see Kathleen McDowell. Kathleen, how are you? I'm going to expand our view here a little bit, see if I can see everybody better. That's perfect. I look at all of you. You guys are all on the early morning no video mode.
Actually, mine didn't give me an option. It just popped up like that.
Oh, did it? Well, check and see. You might want to, in one of your settings down there in your toolbar. There's Jason. Jason has a video. Good morning.
There we go. Good morning.
Good morning. So yeah, and Kathleen has her still picture on there, so that's nice.
Let's see here.
Yeah, there's settings somewhere, I believe, that you can on your toolbar that will start. It says start video, I believe.
Okay.
If you have a camera, of course, on your.
Yeah, no, I have a camera, so it should be. I was on the Zoom the other day, and I was able to.
All right, perfect. Well, maybe we'll see. Yesterday's meeting we did through a webinar because this is the way we normally do our Zoom meetings, where we can see each other, right, and dialogue, and everybody has a chance. There you go. You're coming in.
There we go. Okay.
Like a blue filter, though. It's like what's that old movie that we?
There we go.
All right, perfect. See, you had your camera hidden in case Big Brother was jumping in.
That's exactly. I had one of these little devices.
Ah, is that designed specifically for that?
Yeah, it's made specifically for that.
Ah.
I thought I had it open, but obviously I didn't have it open all the way.
See, there you go. Good morning, everyone. All right, well, let's give everybody, we're still 3 minutes ahead of schedule. So I see Hope is here. Hey, Hope.
Oh, I can't see. Oh, I see now.
Okay, well, we can't see you.
You can't see me? What do I need to do here?
Try, and Grace is here.
Video.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you see me now?
Yeah,
oh, I'm all shady.
Yeah, you are shady.
I'll go outside.
The Slim Shady.
I'm the Slim Shady.
See, I'm dating myself a little bit when I start quoting Slim Shady.
I know that song.
Let's see.
I'm not old.
Well, there you go. See, I'm glad to hear it. If you're not old, then I'm not old. That's beautiful.
All right.
Susan Moeller, how are you?
I am good. How are you guys?
Doing great. It's good to see everyone.
It is.
Feels like it's
Faces
been
are good.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it? It really has. Let me see if I can expand some more. Let's see how much I can expand. Yesterday, like I said, we did a webinar for the Tampa region just because we ended up, it's the first time I did a webinar, and the webinar is different where the attendees, we don't give you the option to be on screen because we had like 150 some odd attendees. So
the size of this.
That's right. Everybody would be like this mini pixel that we could barely see. So that was a little different format. We had our panelists that had the opportunity to chime in, but everybody else had to type questions. So you guys can ask questions all you want. As I continue to expand, let me ask you this: on your screen, you see my desktop, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then do you see everybody else? Like, how many people do you see right now?
Well,
How many?
12 screens.
12?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You've expanded even bigger than I have. All right, so because I only can see 8 of us.
I can see 3.
I'll go over more. Oh, there. Okay, I can get a few more that way. So it's having me expand different ways.
Hi.
That's right. All right, we get now I'm really going to date myself. All right, we talked about Slim Shady already. Now I'll really date myself. Who remembers Romper Room?
Me.
I do. Oh, I do.
All right.
But they never called my name.
She never called my name. Well, I think, I was Bobby, right? And so I was kept waiting for she had this little mirror that had a hole in it. If you guys, it was Miss Mary Ann, wasn't her name? Miss Mary Ann?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but it was like a preschool show, right? And then she'd hold it up at the end and say, I see Pammy, I see Grace, I see Bobby, I see Jason. And if you were a kid, you were just waiting for her to call your names. Oh, she saw me. It was
Never
the best.
saw me.
See, exactly. Well, that's, what. We saw you, Grace, and we see you now. That's the important thing.
Grace was a weird name back then. That's why. Nobody.
That's right. That's right. All right, I'm going to switch over so I can see everybody because I want to say hi to everybody. Now, there's a telephone number who's calling in, 407-342-9884. You want to identify yourself?
Hi, this is Maria Pemberton.
Hey, Maria, how are you?
Hi, good. I could not get up on the other site.
Oh, you couldn't?
I had to go
Oh, well, I'm
through the
glad
phone.
you called in. And maybe, Mara, do you see her phone number there?
I do.
Mara?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Can you
what
maybe
phone number am I
text
looking
her,
at?
text back and forth and see if you can help her get on the video?
I sure can. Mario, you'll have to download Zoom in order to get on the video.
I'm sorry, I'm not real good at this. I'll have to do what now?
Download Zoom in order to utilize the video.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so go to my app store or something.
I'm gonna get my coffee.
Yeah, if you're on your phone, yeah, do it on in the App Store.
Yeah, I'll text you some information.
Okay.
Mara's going to text you right now.
Well, I can still hear you, so you can go ahead and go
Yeah,
on.
perfect.
Right?
No, that's
Do I
great. And
need
you can try and get it figured out. And if not, you can still hear all the information. And Wendy raised her hand. Wendy's here. Let me find you, Wendy. Where are you? There you are. Wendy, we can't see you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you though. Yes, absolutely.
Bob, I can't see your computer, your desktop.
You can't see my desktop? What do you see?
I just see a blank screen and everybody's faces.
Interesting.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I see your desktop. Ignore me.
Okay.
I don't see it. This is Steve Prather.
Oh, hey, Steve. You just
Hi.
see a blank screen with people?
Yeah, I just see the people on the right of my screen, and I see my screensaver all over my screen, basically.
Screensaver. Huh. Wendy, what did you do to change that? Did it just happen?
Nothing. I thought your screen was Bill's old screen.
Okay, because you
I'm
see
on his computer.
my screen should be a picture of, it's actually a picture of Geneva, Switzerland.
Yes, it's
Oh, okay. All right.
See?
I got
See
it.
that now? All right, good. All right,
I
perfect.
just went out. I can't see anybody.
Well, we can
Sorry
hear
about
you.
it. I can hear you.
All right, well, we'll, the joys of all this, you know, it's funny, and I prefer to do it this way because I haven't seen you guys in a while. So, because we could have done the webinar thing, but then if we do the webinar, then I don't get to see everybody's face. So I missed everybody yesterday. So I want to get a chance to catch up with you guys. And if I don't call you by name like Miss Mary Ann, then on Romper Room, then forgive me. I'm going through to see who's all here. Abigail, hey guys, welcome Abigail. Abigail, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Abigail is just joining Future Home. And matter of fact, she and I have never met in person. She actually decided to join. We did a Zoom session one-on-one to introduce her to Future Home, and she decided to join. She's newly licensed. And
Yay.
Jason, you might want to, Abigail is a volleyball coach, has coached club volleyball and a bunch of other things, and even at some schools locally. Abigail, Jason is a basketball coach at
Okay.
Oviedo, right? Jason, is that where you are? Oviedo High?
That's correct. Welcome, Abigail.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And hey, Hope, are you here?
Yeah, I am. I just can't see anyone, but hi, Abigail.
Hi.
Oh, okay. If you can't see her, but Abigail turned on her camera so we can see Abigail now, and that's Hope, by the way.
Hi.
You guys,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Hope is going to be
How'd you
Abigail's
meet?
mentor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I hooked the two of them up. And see, here's what, and I'll get to this when I get to some of my points, is I don't call it social distancing, right? Everybody's calling it social. It's physical distancing. Yes, we're physically apart, but we're not socially distant, right? We're all interacting right here. We're able to socialize through things like this. So we're not doing social distancing. We refuse to participate in social distancing, but we will participate in physical distancing. Cool?
Cool.
All right, very good. All right, so can everybody, Hope, did you get your stuff figured out? Can you see us yet? No?
Now, how do you guys get everybody on the screen at the same time?
If you go back up to your toolbar where the screen is, take a look. There's a little tile thing. And if you click, there's like, looks like 9 buttons.
Yeah, I see that. I did that. But you guys are all shifted off my computer. It's weird.
Oh, maybe, okay, click on the top of it and like left click it and drag it. See if maybe it got drugged over.
Oh, okay.
That's possible.
Oh, wow, you're brilliant.
Well, I've done a lot of these.
Somebody's paying the big bucks.
If that's what it takes for you to call me brilliant, then I'm in. Too funny. Well, welcome. It's great to see everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to I want to cover a couple things housekeeping wise to make sure we're all up to date on our latest of how we're handling things, processing files and everything else, and also introduce you to some links that I think you want to be made aware of. Then Grace has prepared a little presentation for us, and she's going to share with us some mortgage updates on things that have changed a little bit and things that are going on and ways that we can still conduct business doing that. And then I'll pop back in and I'll give you some updates on the different presenters we had yesterday. By the way, that video is up if you want to go watch them in person or recorded in person, right? But I will kind of give you the highlights of what we covered from the SBA program update stuff, right? From title issues and the ways that the business is being done. And I'll probably have some things to ask Grace even about that. And then from a legal aspect, right? Where I was going to try and have Barry Miller and or his group on, but he's doing a webinar, I think, today at 10. I saw, and I'd already scheduled this one. So I knew better than to ask him to pop in. But I think I've got a really good grasp of what things are doing and how agents are transacting business. Got a really good grasp on these SBA programs that are out there because I'm a small business owner as well. So I'm going through some of this and I've got some good insight for you. And then also want to make sure you guys are aware of our virtual office hours that we're hosting every day of the week, Monday through Friday, 1 to 2. Usually, if you check the Facebook pages and the links that you have, you can jump on anytime. They have been, hey, let's answer a contract question. I got somebody that's wanting to cancel, or how would you show that? But more, we're finding that it's just, hey, it's good to see a face of somebody who's over the age of 18. Right. That kind of all joking aside, I know we've got our teachers in the session, but I don't know if you saw the meme came out. It says day 3 of homeschooling my children, 2 kids, one's suspended, one's expelled, and the teacher's been fired for drinking on the job. So I thought it was pretty classic. So I know everybody's adapting as we're going through. So it is kind of, hey, there's Steve. We get to see your face now, Steve.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah,
but now it's on.
And Heather Walker, just so you know, you're muted, but we do see you. Or we know you're there. We don't see your cameras.
Hey, yes, I'm not going to put my hair on the screen like that.
No problem.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Esteban, I see you. Wendy, of course, you're going cameraless. We understand. And Janet Shawm, I'll introduce Janet. Janet, I'd like you to maybe speak and see if you have any webinars coming up, if you'd like, regarding specific to 1031 exchanges. You can let us know that in a bit as well. Can you hear us okay, Janet?
Yep. Thank you.
Good, perfect, good deal. All right. Okay, so let's get down. Let me share my PowerPoint and get into some of this stuff. And all right, I'm going to move you guys over so I can see my PowerPoint a little better. Okay. See, business is still happening. Phones are ringing. People have got things to do. I love that. That's a good sign. Okay, here's some housekeeping items. I just want to go over real quickly. Forget the Q&A thing. That was for yesterday when they had to ask a question via Q&A. You guys can actually wave me down or yell out if you're not on my screen at the time. So that's great. Admin staff, just obviously, if you guys have probably figured out that our admin staff is working from home. But the beauty of what they do is they can do it easily from home because we're all cloud-based on our file compliance and all those other things. So they are monitoring new files coming in. No change at all regarding the admin staff as far as file compliance and your ability to dialogue with them and interact with them by email and so on and so forth. So they are working the regular hours and up and running. And the regular hours, you guys understand, usually means till 11 o'clock at night. For some of them, they're doing file compliance. You guys pop in a file at 10:45 and you're like, oh, I'm getting a response already by 10:48. So it's good to know. So they're there. Mail, reminder, we are monitoring mail. However, we are mail specifically to checks. That's the important part of mail, right? That if you have checks that, for instance, let's say you didn't, for somehow had a closing, didn't get paid through a disbursement authorization and need to get the funds to Future Home, please, please, please mail that. This has always been the case, but it's a good reminder now. Mail that to the West Chase office in Tampa. It's the one on Linebaugh Avenue. If you look up on our website, you would see the addresses there. But that is considered headquarters, if you will. It's the mothership, and that's where the mail is being processed. And we check it, still checking it 3 times a week. So make sure that comes in. If you do have stuff overnighted, if a title company overnights checks to us or your closing documents or whatever, please, because there's no one there to sign for them, make sure they leave off the signature required document, because we have Jim installed a Dropbox specifically for overnight packages that they can leave those. So we've adapted that way. So, but if it says signature required, it's eventually going to go back to the FedEx or the UPS holding area, and that will severely slow things down, to say the least. So if you do have any things that title companies are overnighted, just please remind them to leave the signature requirement off. Commissions, we're still processing commissions on our normal time frame. Mondays and Wednesdays is when Maureen processes deposits, and we usually cut checks on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I am here in Nashville, so I was in Florida, but now I'm back up here in Nashville. And so I process the checks from here, and I mail them directly from here. Ideally, if you don't want to wait, if you have a closing, don't want to wait for a check to be delivered, make sure that if you did not, or the title company wasn't able to honor the disbursement authorization, then you can reach out to Maureen and we can ACH those funds into your account rather than you have to wait for a check as well, once we've confirmed the check has been received by us. So all good there. And final thing, Maureen asked me to mention signatures. If you guys, as a reminder, a lot of the forms that you would need my signature on would be things like a referral document or sometimes other things. If you could, if our referral documents, the MLS waiver forms, all those are already pre-signed in paperless pipeline. Under reference tab, you go down, you'll see miscellaneous forms, and you'll see one pre-signed by me that you can utilize. But if you didn't catch that or didn't do it and you need my signature on something, if you could utilize some type of e-sign component, that would be great. That'd be a lot easier for me to do rather than have to try and get to a place where I can print it, sign it, scan it, and get it back to you. Just an e-sign would be best for that. Speaking of e-sign, I was on a conference call with the Florida Executive Committee from Florida Realtors yesterday. It's basically the top 50 brokers. And the president of Florida Realtors, Barry Grooms, was on. And he mentioned that if you don't currently have an e-sign component with, I think Form Simplicity is the one that they control, right? Transaction Desk is through the MLS, but Form Simplicity is Florida Realtors portal, that they have made e-sign free for till June 30th to help enable. So if you don't already have that e-sign component, then and you're looking for one to try and use in these times, then maybe check out Form Simplicity, because they've made it free, and they ask us to let our agents know about that. So cool there. It's kind of all I had on housekeeping items as far as business, conducting business as we go. as I mentioned before, I'm calling this continued engagement, and we're going to encourage you about to continually engage with not only your clientele. By the way, it's a great time to engage your clientele, right? And not to check in and say, hey, just wondering if you have COVID. By the way, do you anybody know looking to buy or sell real estate? That's probably not what we want to lead with, right? But something a little more sympathetic, and just say, hey, just checking in. Want to see how you're doing. Is everybody okay? I know you have small children at home. Are you going nuts yet, right? Or have you seen this website I saw for help for homeschooling with preschoolers or whatever, right? Have some of that stuff at your disposal. It's a great time to reach out. It's a beautiful cat, Susan. There. Oh, it's a dog. It's even more beautiful. I see. What's his name? Oh, she's muted.
That's Stella.
Stella. Very nice.
She's always interrupted me.
All right, that's good. She's not.
That's why I muted, because they'll start talking to me.
And if I'll say her name every once in a while, because I know she's like my dog. She's like, hey, I don't hear my name enough, right? And so we're an hour behind. So Trixie's still sleeping down in her kennel right now. So.
Oh yeah, I wish. There's up early.
Yeah. Anyway, so continuing to engage, right? Engage with your clients, look for creative ways. And by the way, I'm going to talk about Michael Mayer has a good group that he's got running every day. It's called the Daily Dose, and I'll give you a link to that. That is good information. And he's encouraging and making great assignments for people to, hey, look, here's your assignment for between now and tomorrow. Go do some things, because we want to be proactive and do that. So virtual office hours, we talked about that a little bit. It's usually 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, all right, Monday through Friday. It's either, most of the time it's me. I think Jim handles Wednesdays. So today might be Jim, but other than that, I'm on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It used to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we've expanded it because it's become a good social time, right? For us to interact and just catch up and answer questions, of course, but also have a good opportunity to kind of just dialogue amongst ourselves. So encourage you to check those out. Those can all be found, any link you're looking for. Remember the FHR calendar. It's on FHR website, upper right-hand corner, agent login. And once you log in, that's the back office of Future Home Realty. It's the non-public facing portion, right, at futurehomerealty.com, and you can see that. Go there, and our calendar is loaded with all sorts of stuff. Any things that we think you need to be aware of, whether we're doing it or some other people are putting on some good seminars, we'll try and put links to there as well. All right. Zoom trainings are all happening as well, and we're doing that. FHR University loaded. Everybody's been, yes, knows how to get to FHR University. Anybody? Hey, Wendy, we see your still picture now, so that's good. Let's see. Anybody speak up now? Forever hold your peace. Everybody good with FHR University? It's a good spot to check whenever I have important updates. Like, we'll cover it when we cover the legal portion, but when I got into when that new COVID extension addendum came out, within about 6 hours, I had a video recorded explaining that thing and warning about some potential pitfalls there. And we post that on the front page usually of FHR University. So any new items, good place to check if you want to check for any updates that I've recorded specifically regarding that. And then the other tabs have, like, our office meeting from yesterday is under the office meeting tab, and so on and so forth. All right. Okay. Facebook pages. We have the 100K Club. If you aren't part of that, that's a great group to follow. That is future home and non-future home agents, but most of you, as I'm looking at you on the screen here, are part of that. So that's great. There's also one called Just Us Agents FHR. That is actually administered by another agent in the office, but it's for only FHR agents. It's a great spot. Like, hey, does anybody know where I get Bob's signature on the MLS or the Stellar, waiver form or whatever? And I tried texting Jim, and he's in a meeting or whatever. He hasn't got back. So whatever that is, you ask that question, and within about 2 minutes, you get a great answer because people are kind of monitoring that quite a bit. So that's Always good news. And then we also have the FHR Orlando page as well. Specific, there's an FHR Orlando group that we post to as well. So all those Facebook pages are great places to interact. And then one last reminder, I've already covered it, but remember we're not trying to socially distance, but just physically distance, right? We can stay safe and be and still be able to communicate and have fun and engage with each other. So that's a great thing. All right, next thing, great resources. NAR has done a phenomenal job. Let me real quickly pull up. Let's see if I can get out of here for a minute. You guys haven't seen or been on NAR's site recently, you should check it out. Great information there. They're constantly loading all sorts of things on here in this sidebar. I'm going to move you guys around. You guys could probably see it, but there's right tools, right place. Coronavirus, that thing is loaded right here. The coronavirus aid and economic, that's about the CARE Act. There's also a coronavirus page specifically about how to get business done. How can you host a virtual showing? All sorts of great information NAR has put out. So pay attention to that. Use that as a resource. Likewise, Florida Realtors has as well. So utilize them for updates on different things that are coming about and any changes that are there regarding, like when they had different stay-at-home orders and all that was coming down the pike, and how they were negotiating with Florida legislature on getting us deemed essential. Okay, I got to tell you another funny, if nothing else, okay, the Americans are creative. First of all, I have no doubt we're going to beat this because we have the most ingenious, well-trained, we're entrepreneurs at heart. Even our doctors are entrepreneurs. They're figuring out cures for this thing as we speak, right? So that is great news. In addition, if you think that Americans are not creative, go watch some of the memes that are out there. They are hilarious to see the memes that are. I saw one of my favorites was just gave my family a 1-star review on Yelp. Would not recommend. It's like day 20 of quarantine. 1-star review on Yelp for my family. I would not recommend. So, but there is all sorts of information available to you. So take advantage of that. Let me go back to my PowerPoint real quick and find out where I was there. Oh, so I covered local boards. Some of the local boards are doing incredible stuff, right? I know Aura's putting out some things on training. I know the Pinellas Realtor Organization in particular has led the way, and they're already allowing, they've been approved for CE courses, designation courses, like you can get GRIs and all that kind of stuff virtually now, right? And that's never been done before. It always required in online or in-person stuff. So keep an eye on the local board sites. They're doing a phenomenal job. Here's what I was talking about with Michael Mayer, the generosity generation, winning the referral game with Michael Mayer. Okay. If you guys could jump on that, he has, I think, a daily, and he'll have a different expert in each time. Has anybody been on that yet and jumped on that? I know some of my other agents in the other regions have. Wendy, Pamela, have you guys jumped on that by any chance? No? Okay, that's fine. If you guys get a chance to, I would highly recommend. Oh, hey, Esteban, how are you? You're muted and we can't see you, but I know you're there. Esteban's a newer agent with us. Good to hear you. How are you doing?
Doing good, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Good deal. And Nick, I switched screens here so I get to see more people. Hey, Nick, how are you? Awesome. Good deal. And then finally, Inman News. Some of you guys follow Inman, but Inman is kind of a compiler of data. They don't really create their own content, but they just scan all the different news sources for real estate related items. And so sometimes they'll have some interesting facts, tips, articles on how to conduct business in a certain area or in a certain situation, like when we having more difficulty showing people face to face and so on and so forth. So that's great stuff. And then finally, just, you know what, if nothing else comes out of this, I'm going to encourage you to come out with a renewed vision of seeing yourself as a business owner, right? Now more so than ever, it's time to take ownership of who you are as an independent business owner and what you can do to organize yourself, to make sure you're structured. When we get into some of this discussion about the different payroll protection program loans and so on and so forth, I'll tell you this, if you had heeded my advice earlier and made sure you had all your stuff set up on QuickBooks and everything else is going, your life's going to get a lot easier here. And when you start making these applications, than if you're, going to try and shoebox full of receipt, this kind of thing, right? You got some time right now. If you're a shoebox full of receipts is what you normally hand your accountant, that's okay. But realize accountants generally charge you by the hour. They may not tell you that, but they look at your shoebox and say, oh, yeah, your tax return is going to be $1,000, right? Whereas somebody else walks in with 3 spreadsheets and hands it or emails them 3 spreadsheets and says, oh, I can do that for $175, right? So it's all based upon the hours they got to spend digging through your stuff. So if we can organize our stuff and put some things to coding, certain things to a certain account, it's a great time to do all that, right? To become really hone in on being a business owner. So cool. All right. Now that's pretty much what I had for my housekeeping and other items. Let me get back to my desktop and see. Grace, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, let me bring your stuff up. I knew I saved it.
I don't see it there, but maybe
I don't
renamed it.
Hang on, I can probably pull it up for sure by your, where did I? Let me check in my email box real quick. There's your, here we go, look at that.
There I am.
All right, there you go.
All right. Well, I hope we're all thriving, not just surviving.
Yes.
And that my favorite meme was "Good morning, inmates."
That's a great one.
I went in way earlier than everybody else because I work from home anyway. So I just decided to, do a big shopping and just sort of play it safe and stay at home, wait and see. So I've been in for 5.5 weeks.
Wow.
Fancy. So, all right. Well, there's a lot of changes. A lot of it is happening sort of on the fly because, as you know, it all came by surprise. And Fannie and Freddie and the banks weren't prepared for all of this. And they're still making decisions, and the decisions happen, every day are changes, sometimes every hour are changes. So, but the good news is it's business as usual by and large. Loans are closing. And so we'll start with the fact that interest rates are still historically low. I'm still quoting 3.25 on a 30-year fixed with no point.
Wow.
So they have artificially inflated them slightly because when the rates went down a few weeks ago, they became inundated with files, like really inundated with files. So somebody in my office who normally does 20 loans a month had 100, like crazy inundated. And so this volume, they weren't prepared to handle. So even though they want the business, they literally just don't have the staffing to process all of these loans in a timely fashion. And the locks have expirations on them. And they can't just tell you, oh, it'll be an extra 30 days because the locks expire. So, we have to lock on long locks now, but loans are happening. The good portion of the mortgage business, people work at home, underwriters work at home, contract underwriters work at home. A lot of them are paid by the file, so they're even working on weekends. So things are still happening and moving. And I just got 2 loans clear to close, start to finish in 3.5 weeks. So things can still go.
Good for you. Great job.
Yeah. So it's hard to say what they could do. It's pretty impossible. They're just doing some crazy stuff. Bob, you might know more than I do about this. I know they've traditionally been tied to the 10-year Treasury bond, but now it's sort of anyone's guess why or how things are moving. So, you know, as wild as the stock market is, that's pretty much as wild as the rates are. So my advice is, if you have clients, tell them that if they like the rate, lock it. That's if you like it, lock it, because, you know, waiting for that great rate could go away. So big time.
That's
so
awesome. Put a ring on it. Put a ring on it.
Right, exactly. Okay. So Fannie and Freddie loans are full speed ahead. Banks are still in business with Fannie and Freddie loans because the federal government basically guarantees those for all intents and purposes. Jumbos is where the market is shrinking. Jumbos are portfolio loans. They're loans that the banks hold in their portfolio. They're still available, but the guidelines on them are shrinking, and a lot of lenders are pulling out. I still have maybe 3 or 4 that are still doing it, but that could change on any given date. So I don't know if anybody does a lot of, you know, sort of higher end stuff, but if you do, the jumbo market is sort of dwindling away a little bit at this point.
And Grace, when you say tightening, obviously higher credit scores required, larger down payment, or lower loan to value.
Yes, larger down payment. Yes.
Okay.
I still have one lender that'll go to 90, but the vast majority, many of them are pulling out altogether, saying we're not even going to do them. Period. So your number of options for lenders is shrunk. And then those that are left are sort of, you know, tightening up their guidelines, like you said, with mostly larger down payments. Because they just want to, you know, hedge their bets on their risks, lower the risks. That's what, you know, that's what the game is about.
Have you seen any tightening on lending restrictions on Fannie and Freddie on qualified mortgage stuff?
The only thing that when I was going to get to that on what changes of COVID had, which leads me right into the next point.
Okay, perfect.
In general, no. They are only happening with regard to self-employed borrowers. They're requiring 6 months of reserves, which is more than typical. And FHA is increasing their minimum credit score from 620 to 640. So for now, it's sort of smaller changes. The overall Fannie Freddie guidelines that I've seen haven't switched. The MI companies, the mortgage insurance companies, they're sort of retracting or thinking about retracting. We're getting emails that we're not going to do this kind of loan anymore, and we're not going to do that kind of loan anymore. And it's small sort of fringe stuff that isn't real typical, but I see it as a trend. It's going to come if things don't get better, because they're the ones who are going to have to pay out. You know, they're the ones who have to pay out. So if somebody defaults, that's who pays out.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. But so far, things are good. We're also getting a lot of property inspection waivers on finances and even on some purchases. So that's going to eliminate some of the need for appraisals. But appraisals are still happening. Closings are still happening. Things are still happening, which is great. So I'm really impressed, honestly, to see how, like you said, we are innovative people. We're entrepreneurs in this business. They have really just on a dime have just really adapted to this new environment and to keep the train running. And it's just barreling down the tracks. It's going.
Yeah. Hey, Grace, on the appraisal front, obviously they had made some changes a while back anyway, expanding the pool of properties that would not require an appraisal to begin with. But now, so are you seeing an expansion of that, or that they've modified, hey, exterior inspection only, you know, kind of stuff? Or
yes, you see more of it than you did. I don't know how or why, the intricacies of it, whether they've expanded guidelines or they've just rolled out the program sooner. I'm not real sure why. And it's case by case. It's completely and totally case by case. There's literally no particular rhyme or reason as to why one person would get a property inspection waiver. My guess is that it has to do with the volume of appraisals in that area that they have loaded into their system to compare it.
Right.
Or
It's like being randomly selected for at TSA check-in, to get scanned, right? You've been randomly selected to pull aside. All right.
And ensure it has to do with value too. So if you got something on the really high end of the norm, they're probably going to say, let's see if that one really is. But overall, you just have to plug each file into Fannie and Freddie and run it through and roll your dice and see what comes out. Pull the lever and ding, ding, you got it or you didn't. That's sort of how it works. So, okay, and then with regard to loan applications and that sort of thing, and pre-approvals, everything is done virtually. That's sort of what we've done. I've been doing already, but a lot of people in the office haven't been, but now everybody's sort of switching to this. So pre-approvals can be done in 10, 15 minutes over the phone. Loan applications are done online. I used to need a few documents signed, like an e-signature authorization form. Those have all been eliminated. We've upgraded our systems to where you can do everything 100% DocuSign, nothing in paper. We have something called a hybrid closing now, where we can even do the vast majority of the closing documents via DocuSign. And the only thing that needs to be hand signed is the mortgage and the note. So that means going into the closing instead of a 45-minute or an hour appointment. Now you might have a 10 or a 15-minute appointment.
Let me ask you, and that kind of leads me into the discussion we had yesterday about the RAN, the RON closings, right? The remote online notary, where they've got this enhanced. I know Barry Miller has done that, but the feedback we were getting from the agents as well as the title companies were, yeah, it all sounds great and we can be approved, but the underwriter, that underwrites the title company has to be approved for it. And then the bank has to accept it, right? And if they're still going to require, if everything else is good, if they're still going to require a wet signature on at least the note and potentially the mortgage, because and there's going to have to be some settled case law around that, because that's where all these random online notaries, and then they go to foreclose and they say, sorry, some attorney's going to say, sorry, you don't have the wet note.
Well, I can speak to that. So that's why we call it the hybrid closing, because it's not a completely online. You do have to sign the mortgage and the note. We've already started them, and all but 3 or 4 of our lenders accept it. And the ones that don't accept it aren't our normal lenders. So they're sort of the ones that you use only here and there for weird products.
Right.
So I would say the vast majority of ours, we're already doing them in our office. We're doing a lot of refinances more with those. And we do remote closings where we send the closing agent to the person's house. And first they sign everything, the bulk of the documents online, and then the closer comes to the door, checks their ID, hands them the mortgage and note, or maybe one other paper that they need to sign. That person can go to their table, sign those 5 things, and hand them back out the door, so that you don't have to go anywhere.
That's awesome. One of the title companies yesterday said they're calling theirs curbside service.
Yes, very much like
they're doing curbside closings where you can sign on the trunk, and we'll stay 6 feet away. I'll hand it to you.
Correct.
And masks and everything else. So.
Isn't it awesome how we've come up with these great solutions? It's really great. So
if we can just get Instacart to be the mobile notaries, we'll be good.
Exactly. They'll be here in 2 hours, right? Okay, so then the last thing I wanted to touch on, unless you have questions, is this whole forbearance thing that you're hearing in the news, and it doesn't really apply so much to you guys as realtors in terms of sales, except in the sense that if you're having somebody who owns a house now and is going to sell that house and buy a new house down the road, it may affect that in terms of them being able to get a new mortgage. So forbearance is sounding good to people who have no job and who are struggling, but it's not really a good idea if you can avoid it at all. I would pay the mortgage and not pay everything else. I would beg, borrow, and steal and pay my mortgage if I can. So what happens is with forbearance, each bank has their own rules. You can either pay it at the end of the loan, or you can have to pay it at a lump sum once your forbearance period is over. Sometimes they make you just pay the interest. It's sort of all different, but what most people think happens is that you skip those payments and then you just go back to paying your normal payment when it's time. And what happens is then they don't even realize they're in arrears because they didn't make the extra payment, they didn't make the lump sum payment, all these things. And then all of a sudden you've got this humongous, 5, 6, 7 months mortgage late. You'll never get another mortgage. Well, not never, but be a long time to get another mortgage until that's all cleared up.
Right, right. And, you know, something to that just hit me when you said that. I know FHA, Ben Carson did come out and say that on FHA loans that their plan is to just tack them on at the end, right? Okay, we're just extending. If you had a forbearance for 3 months, now if your loan was going to mature in March of 2031, now it's going to be July of 2031 is when.
Right.
Now that's FHA specific. Others, it sounds like, are handling it more like when we get the escrow notice. Hey, we did your escrow analysis and we noticed
like
you're
that.
underfunded by X, and so we're going to divide those up for the next year and make up those differences. Or hey, you know what? You better pay it all now, or we're starting.
Yes. So you have to check with your lender if you're going to do it to see what their particular rules are. And honestly, most people who are in forbearance, if they're out for 3 months, let's just say, they're not going to be able to come up with a giant lump sum. And that's going to really be a problem too. So forbearance is, I think, a very last resort. I wouldn't recommend it, and, you know, do what you can to avoid that. So yeah, does anybody have any other questions, or, you know?
Any questions for Grace? I'll make sure I have, your phone number's right here. You guys see Grace's, and Grace, that's impressive. You look like your picture. That's, not everybody does that. Not everybody can make that claim.
I have to be honest, they photoshopped my wrinkles right here. I asked.
That's okay. You look great.
In
That's awesome.
the interest of full disclosure, they did.
Grace, can you go into more detail about whenever people do choose a forbearance program, like they tack it on at the end, like what the problems would be in the future in getting a mortgage?
Yes. So just showing the forbearance on your credit is going to be a ding to your credit. And the guidelines haven't come out yet because this is a strange situation. These aren't people who lost their jobs due to any of their own fault. So there may come a point where they waive the problems with, or, you know, let's just say a year goes by and I pull your client's credit, and it shows, oh, they had a forbearance on there. The normal rules are you can't get another mortgage for like another 12 months or 24 months. I'd have to look up the guideline. At this point, that's still how it is. They may waive that, knowing that, you know, because this was a problem that was unforeseen and nobody could deal with. But until we know that, we don't really know what the ramifications are. Just know that forbearance on your credit is generally a very bad thing for at least 12 months.
Thank you.
Because the term forbearance has been used before, right? It's
Yes.
just becoming very chic right now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so to answer Jason, your question, I think Grace did a great job, because it's almost like having a short sale on your credit or something like that. People are going to look at it, and it is a derogatory thing. I think that there will be some settling at the end to say, well, if 80% of the population has a forbearance, then is it really a ding on your credit when, you know,
It usually leads the lender to believe there's something wrong with you and your credit worthiness. But because in this case, it isn't really about, you know, a whole million people losing their job because they all stink at their job.
Right.
It's because of this weird situation. So that's why I think they'll probably make some accommodation for that, but who knows what it'll be.
Correct.
And how long it'll be.
Great. Any other questions from you guys for Grace specifically?
No, not on forbearance.
No?
On
No, or on
anything
anything?
lending?
Anything lending
I've got a
wise?
question.
Yeah.
This is sort of a hopeful question, but I probably know the answer. I have
We like hope. We like hope. And we like Hope Snope, Hope Carter Snope, and we like hope.
Yeah, I like both. I have a listing, and it's under contract, and the buyer is being furloughed by Disney. And so the lender is having trouble, you know, finding an investor that'll handle that case. I think she's still going to be paid through the expected close date, which is next week. And she has a conventional loan. She's gone back and forth between conventional and FHA for reasons I don't understand, because it's not my buyer. but would it help her in any, is there any help that could be made for her if she went back to FHA?
I don't think so. You know, that was the one point I forgot to touch on, and I meant to. It was in my mind earlier and I forgot. Yeah, if your people are furloughed before they're closed, nobody's going to fund those loans right now. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So they do a verbal verification of employment before they close, anywhere between 2 days and 10 days before closing. And if they are told they're furloughed, it's not going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Or if the person who handles those verifications at the company is furloughed and doesn't answer the phone, then
Yeah,
it's all.
there's that too. I actually have that issue on one file.
To do. And you know what, here's, and I'm looking at the group here, and I don't know how many of you have been on my virtual office hours, but I have been providing hope every day, because I truly believe, guys, you know, obviously I was here in 2008 and 2009, right? I went through it. Apples and oranges, all right? Apples and oranges. 2008, 2009, housing was a major part of the problem, right? We were kind of, not we, but the whole system, there were systemic problems in what we were doing from purchasing properties to lending to appraising to all that was all balled up into this, mortgage-backed security crumble, right? This is not the case now, right? And take all your political beliefs and set them aside for a moment, right? But admit this, that the dude that stands up every day and gives us an update, right? It goes against every fiber in his body to say, I'm going to shut the economy down, okay, right? And by doing that, all right, he knows we're putting a roadblock in the river. If you can picture the economy as this river flow of money, right? And we're getting a very good education on how things work, right? I mentioned the other day, hey, my dry cleaning bill has gone down, right? But then I thought, hey, you know what? The guy who works at the dry cleaner doesn't have a job. And the company that creates the fluid that they use to clean my clothes, they've stopped producing, now maybe they've shifted over to, hand sanitizer, and they should, right? But, and adapt. But the reality is we're getting a good case, a good example of how our economy is so intertwined, right? How we all rely on each other, all right? And why consumption is so important, why the housing market is so important, because things happen when houses move, right? Grace does loans, and title companies do title, and inspectors inspect, and appraisers appraise, and all this handyman fix things that the lenders want fixed, right? It's all, tied in there. And when we put a whoop in there, right, and say, hey, look, we got to stay home just so we can get safe and get through this thing, right? Here's the good news, is that all that water is still building up behind, right? There's nothing wrong with our economy.
No.
We just have put a block in it right now temporarily because we have to. My belief is, all right, that as soon as we lift the gate, whoosh, here it comes, right? There's just going to be this pent up demand. There's some things we can't make up. I get that, right? We're not going to be able to go and eat 12 meals to make up for the 12 meals we missed over the, eating out over. I get that, right? But that's why I'm encouraged about the things I'm about to talk about with the CARES Act and what they did specific to the SBA or the small business portion of it, because I think it was genius in how they structured this thing. Now, the implementation and getting the money out, there's some issues there, but they're working on it. But it was really well thought out and how they're going to do it. So before I jump into any of that, anything else we can ask Grace? Grace, are you planning on sticking around anyway?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
okay.
I always learn something from you, so it's worth my while.
All right, perfect. Well, if you're going to be around, you can, and if I call on you and you're muted and you're working on a file or something, I'll just give you time to get back to joining us. All right, sound fair?
Thanks.
So if anybody else has any questions, we can jump in as well. So to go. So all right, so let me give you some updates on what we covered yesterday and specific to some of that stuff. Now, the CARES Act, I mentioned that, right? So here's the deal. there are a couple things available to you. On the, let's see if I can find it. It's not there. I put it in there. If you go to the 100K pages, I sent out, or I copied a link that the SBA of Southwest Florida is putting on webinars for the next 3 days. Check those out. It's on 100K. I think I posted it on most of the pages, most of the Facebook pages. And it's webinars about specific about how the SBA handles these different programs. Let me see if I can clarify in 7 minutes the 3 different situations that you might find yourself in as far as gaining some access to some of these funds, right, as independent contractors, and how you might be able to apply and benefit from them. And let's see if I can break it down simply for you. So I'm going to expand so I can see more faces since I don't have anything to pull up, and see if I can catch you guys. All right. I always do better when I'm talking to faces for some reason. It's easier for me. I feel for, anybody attending church virtually on Sundays? Yeah. All right. Don't you feel, and some of the pastors are actually doing church like in their sanctuary completely empty, right? Can you imagine trying to do a sermon and say, and pretend like your parishioners are there? I'm sure it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. I did see some things where some of the support staff are putting stuffed animals and stuff in the pews to help the help the pastors do that. So I do better when I can see faces and I'm talking. But here's the thing. First of all, there is what's called an SBA 2, SBA parentheses 2 loan. That is the disaster relief loan. Okay, it's a loan that can shift into a grant. It's a maximum of $10,000. It's for small business owners. It was a much smaller pool of money. I think Florida, the state of Florida had like 50 million. And in the CARES Act, which is the big act passed by Congress, right? There was 10 billion of specific for this, hey, massive. It's normally what SBA has run this program for years, but normally what business owners would go to in a hurricane, right? Where I've had this, I need this disaster relief fund available. And if you prove that you used it to rebuild and do some things, then a portion of that, if not all, would be forgiven. Okay, that's one option. I'm not advising you to focus on that at this moment, right? Because I think that pool of money, it was available a couple of weeks ago, and I believe that's pretty much gone. That could be gone. Now they may refund it through CARES Act 2, right? That they may pass, but as of right now, it's not there. All right. The second one, and this is one I'm going to encourage you to focus on, is what it's called an SBA 7 loan, SBA 7A, technically, right? And specific to that, you want to remember 3 Ps, all right? Payroll Protection Program, all right? So if you Google that and Bing it, here is where I believe our administration has had their hands knee deep in it and created this CARES Act and just told Congress to pass it. And because we got some Stephen Mnuchin is the Treasury Secretary. He understands this stuff extremely well. By the way, Grace, that call I was on yesterday also had the Florida Realtors chief economist. The Florida Realtors hires and pays full-time salaried chief economist. And he was talking about, hey, look, what things, and by the way, we're going to be gathering data. And the minute we have data to show your clients, by the way, they know that you want this, that as we see a recovery coming, we want to do price by price analysis so you can properly educate your clientele on, hey, look, yep, we've had about an 8% hit, but we see a 1% jump every 2 weeks, right? Or whatever it is. They're going to track all this stuff because data is going to rule the day, right? Data is absolutely going to rule the day. And aside for that, Grace, though, is that this chief economist said, hey, look, I admit I'm not an expert on treasuries and the inner workings of the mortgage banking system, right? However, he said, I do have friends that are knee deep in it, right? And he goes, I've put out a poll to them, and to the last one, they have assured me that the administration and Treasury is doing the right thing. All right, and protect, they understand the backing of and how important it is to have a vital, legitimate, consistent mortgage system in the United States and how critical that is to our economy, and they are committed to it. Do you have something?
I was just going to say that's probably why the stock market responded so favorably.
Correct.
And because they know this too, and why the rates are still low, because they would artificially inflate them if they didn't want all these loans. And
Correct.
yeah, I that sounds like a really good explanation as to why.
Right, and because we've got some pretty smart people like Mnuchin and his crew. They were in this. This is their field. This is they're rolling up the sleeves and saying, "Hey, look, we're not happy we're going through this, but this stuff excites me." Right? This is the kind of stuff they do, and they know how to do that. So that's great news. As far as this payroll protection program, here's the genius of it. Right? That payroll protection is designed to get money for 8 weeks. The whole design is for 8 weeks of payroll for a small business owner's employees, right? Now, what does that do? Twofold, right? It, number one, keeps those employees from filing for unemployment, right? It's designed to relieve what is going to be very overtaxed unemployment system in not only in the state of Florida, but across the country. Grace.
And hopefully forbearance, it keeps them from forbearance too.
There you go, even better, right, exactly, okay? So it keeps them employed, right? So now they can't file for unemployment because they are still employed, right? Number one. Number two, 8 weeks, hopefully we'll be over the curve and, cranking through this and starting to open up at least segments of our economy by then. And the good news is, as a business owner, if I've been able to keep the same people employed and not having to file for forbearances on their mortgage and so on and so forth, right, at the same rate that I had them employed before, that enables me to, when the door is opened and I'm allowed to get back to work, right, fully, that I've got the same staff, everybody, I don't have to retrain. We're just going to, boom, here we go. We're back at it, right? And so it's really bright, in my opinion, that's how they chose to help small business owners, and in the end, also help the workers from being furloughed and laid off. Now, small business, it applies to businesses of 500 employees or less, right? Here is where, and the next time, I know it's probably not the right time, but the next time you go to renew your board membership or whatever and you have a box to check and says, do you want to contribute to RPAC, yes or no, right? Now's your time to stop unchecking that box that says, hey, I'll give $10, because the National Association of Realtors was at the table and led the way in getting independent contractors like you to be able to apply for this small business payroll protection loan, right? So you guys have that ability. Now, right now, it's for small business owners who have employees, right? Okay. Supposedly on April 10th, which is Friday, it's supposed to open up to independent contractors as well. So the way that looks is this. Here's what I encourage you to do. Contact your banker, because even though this is an SBA loan, this particular loan is being implemented and processed and paid out through the local banks, right? It's with the full 100% guarantee of the federal government. There is $350 billion, which they thought was that's a lot of money, because it is, right? But they're already talking about they're going to resupply that stock, right? Because they understand how it's either, hey, we can pay them unemployment or we can pay them in this, right? Let's figure out a way to get them paid and get through this for 8 weeks at least and see what happens, right? Now, what does that mean to you individually as an independent contractor? So let's say John Jones, a realtor with Future Home Realty, right, has a 1099 that says he made $60,000 last year in gross commissions, right? He is going to be able to apply with his local bank for this payroll protection They're going to have different things. They may want a copy of, if you don't have 2019's tax return, that's okay. Give us 2018's. Give us your 2019 1099. By the way, Jim Shands, those were sent out in July. Jim Shands has already processed another 150 requests for, hey, can you send me another copy all right, of my 1099, which you can do, right? We're here to help. We want to help you have access to what you need to apply for these things, right? But so John Smith, 60 grand. The way the program works is this: divide that by 12 to make it a monthly amount, monthly average payroll. They're gonna, and God bless NAR, they got us to count our whole 1099 as income. We know that you wrote off 50% of that as expenses, all right, and only claiming 30,000, but they're gonna allow you to use that whole 50 grand or 60 grand as your cost basis of your, Grace wouldn't do that, right? If you brought in your Schedule C, they'd take a look at it and say, nope, you gross 60, but you only made 30, all right, after you wrote off all your expenses. All right, but they're going to use 60 as the figure. Divide that by 12, you get $5,000. You can apply for a loan that is 2.5 times that. So let's, in our case, 2.5 times 5 grand, $12,500 to keep you, the independent contractor, employed over the next 8 weeks. All right. Now, why do they do 2.5? And doesn't 2 would make more sense, because that's roughly 8 weeks, right, of payroll, right? The answer is because you can pay yourself, but also if you paid other business expenses, let's say you had board dues and a portion of your utility bill that you've been writing off on your home, prorated based upon the square footage of your home office and all that kind of stuff. Those are things that you could add to that. And as long as you use 75% of that loan, 12,500 in this case, toward payroll, which is going back to you, you are your payroll person, right? That loan, and this is where it's going to take organization to make sure you track this, what you do with that money, because as long as you use 75% of that toward payroll, that loan at the end of 8 weeks can be forgiven, wiped away, never to be seen. And the forgiveness is not added as a tax liability for next year's taxes. It's an incredible program. It's as close to free money as you can get. It's going to take some discipline, right? Because I've got to organize. I've got to be able to provide them what they need. I've also got to provide them 8 weeks from now what they need to prove that I used it for what it was intended, right? But it's designed to be a stopgap to get us through this so you can go. Now realize, here's where it's critical. You're gonna have to reach out to I would reach out to your bank now. If you're at Regions, Fifth Third, small local community banks. Banks, quite frankly, there are smaller community banks, maybe some of your better options, even though you don't have a current relationship with them, because they're getting paid 5 points on these deals, right? So, I mean, you say, well, but 5 points on $349 billion, that's a lot of money that these banks are going to receive for processing these loans. All right. So Grace, do you make 5 points on your loans?
Not even close.
And if you did, we wouldn't use you. So that's why.
Well, I suppose that's true.
But that's it. So don't let your banker tell you, oh, this, yes, it's something new for them. They're being forced to process these at a rapid rate, but they're not being asked to do it for free, right? It's not out of the goodness of their heart. So just keep pushing back on them. But if you go to SBA, that's S like Sam, B as in boy, A as in apple, SBA, just in case you guys don't know, SBA stands for the Small Business Association. It's a government entity that's designed to help small businesses, right? SBA.gov, you can download and put in, just in the search profile, payroll protection program. You will get they have a sample application. Now, each bank is handling those applications differently, but you can get what they're looking for and begin to gather the data that you have. Now, if they ask you for a federal ID number, right, and you don't have a business, you don't have an S Corp, that's okay. You can put in your social security number, match what's on your 1099, and be ready to go there, okay? So I'm excited because I think, again, have some patience, right? It's going to take some time to go through this, but as you have patients, know that this, in my opinion, is one of your best sources to go to if you're looking for some relief. Now, of course, those of you who made less than $75,000 in an individual filer, less than $150,000 as a joint filer with kids, have the potential of getting the direct stimulus checks as well, right? The $1,200 per adult plus $500 per dependent child that you claimed on your tax return. If you qualify for that, make sure that check with your tax person, or if you filed your own, if you did it through, if you just say you got a tax return last year, or tax refund, I should say, make sure you have your ACH ability set up with the IRS where they can direct deposit that money into your account, right? If not, go research on irs.gov. They have put out a portal, I believe now, that you can set it up even if you haven't set it up previously, to not, so you don't have to wait for a physical check to come in the mail. All right, because that will delay things a bit, but it'd be a lot faster if you can get the money direct deposited. All right, so that's the other option. And then a last option, in my opinion, would be, again, Florida Realtors stepped up and NAR stepped up and got independent contractors included in the unemployment relief, right? Which is unheard of, right? Totally, completely unheard of, right? Because independent contractors are not employees normally, right? They're not considered employees, they're independent contractors. So they never in the past history have been able to file for unemployment. So that's the good news. The bad news is the state of Florida has never had independent contractors apply for unemployment, right? And so for them to handle this all brand new, as on top of a huge, right, increase in demand for normal unemployment, right? I think that's going to take some time to flesh out, right? I truly believe that. Plus, you're going to have to say, well, I had 3 closings, you know, in March and April, you know, because of deals I'd written before. So how does that weigh against my unemployment? Am I really unemployed? You know what I mean? So I think there might be that disparity, because technically we still can do business, right? Because we are open for business as long as we do it safely and all that. So that's the great news. And people are still buying houses. Grace is doing loans and everything else. So
I have 2 purchases currently right now.
Nice. Awesome.
And the rest are refis, but 2 purchases. And I put out, I don't know, 4 or 5 pre-approval letters last week. So
that's fantastic. That's awesome. And we see it internally in our in paperless pipeline, and our incoming files are still continuing to grow. We're still, business is happening. So that's the good news. So can I answer? I know that's a brief overview. There is a ton of information at the end here. I'll show you. We got, because it's changing a little bit. It's kind of fluid situation, but as far as what's required, but I would check with your local bank, right? And reach out to your relationship there and begin that process now. So as much paperwork as you can put together and be ready to hit the ground running. Does anybody have a specific question to that?
I do.
Who's that? I got
Nick.
Oh, hey, Nick.
Yeah, hey. All the loans and everything that you're talking about, like the payroll protection, so like I'm new to real estate, so I didn't have any income with real estate last year.
Yep.
So what is the kind of advice for me, I guess? I guess there really isn't any, since I didn't make any money with real estate.
Correct. There's nothing to divide by 12, right? To get there. So that would not be an option for you, but you might want to research. I don't know, your other thing with your golf gig, was that a independent contractor situation, or how were you paid there?
So it was, but I worked there last year. So, I mean, I guess I could also do that too.
Yeah, it's a potential. You might want to reach out to your banker and say, hey, look, because of my income was generated from that, you know, last year, how is that looked at in a current situation? Or if there is no income to divide by 12, right, because we didn't have a 1099 from Future Home or any other real estate company, then you might want to investigate other avenues at that point.
Okay.
Good question, though. Good question.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep. Anybody else have any specifics on that? No. It's really some good stuff. Again, it's a moving, fluid situation. There's great information, and we kind of update as we become available, as we get new information available and stories become available for our agents applying and getting accepted and all that stuff for us a lot on our virtual office hours. So if you continue to log into those whenever you get a chance, that'd be a great spot to come get the latest information we have available, as well as I know NAR and Florida Realtors both have information specific to what's called the CARES Act, which is what we're talking. That's the act that was passed by Congress that this is specific to. They update their stuff daily as well, so it's really good info. Cool. All right. Anything else, Janet? Real quickly, you just popped on for me. How are you?
Good. I don't know if you can see me.
It's a little dark. You're like a witness protection program kind of thing.
I know.
Oh
my gosh.
She's the whistleblower.
Yeah, let me
she doesn't want us to see. She's gonna. Oh, there you
There.
are now.
Is that better?
That's much better. Good deal. All right.
I'm
so
not
Janet
very good at this.
Yeah, Janet is. We know her from our Tampa region. Janet's with Old Republic, but 1031 exchange specific, right? So Janet, do you have any webinars or anything you want to tell us about a 1031 program?
Yeah, I do. I actually have two, we're calling them Coffee and Conversation with Old Republic Exchange. They're two 20-minute webinars, super short. You jump on there. There's one on April the 14th at 10 a.m. And there's also one on April the 21st at 10 a.m. I can send you the links, Bob, if you want to distribute them, or they can contact me, via email or what.
Why don't we do both? Why don't you give us your email?
Yes.
Now to this group.
Okay. So my email address, it's the letter J and then my last name. It's Sham. It's S like Sam, CHAUM at oldrepublicexchange.com if someone wants to email me directly, or maybe even send me a text message and I can send the link to them as well. My cell phone is 412-389-5606. But I'll send you the link, Bob, just so you have it and you can send to the group, and people feel free to contact me as well. And I did want to give a quick update on COVID-19, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so I know everybody's been asking, with 1031 exchanges, are there any extensions being granted? And as of right now,
you cut out on me. As of right now, what?
There is not any extensions. The only, I guess, sort of pseudo extension would be is if the exchanger's exchange period was ending on the original tax filing deadline of April 14th. People can take advantage of that 90% extension that the IRS is giving, which extends it out to July 15th. So that's an option, as well. But as far as any extensions on identifying replacement property as part of the 1031 exchange or any other extensions, that's kind of being monitored right now, and the IRS has not come out with anything definitively as to whether or not that will happen. So we're monitoring the situation. We will let you know. I'll let you know specifically, Bob. I'll get you an email.
Perfect.
So you can get your group as well.
Awesome. So as of right now, if you have anybody in the midst of a 1031 exchange, follow the same rules that as were before, and unless we hear otherwise.
Yes, and that's what we would do as the qualified intermediary. Anybody who's has an active exchange and any extensions that come about as they're in the process, we would notify them immediately. Hey, you're eligible for such and such extension. Okay.
Awesome. And by the way, Janet has these webinars, and she'll get us that info, and reach out to her if you want a direct link. In addition, she has it on FHR University. She has a great class that we recorded a couple months ago that she did that goes through 1031 exchange information. So as you are, how about in between your binging Ozark on Netflix? All right, once you do one Ozark episode, then switch to an FHR University, then go back to a Tiger King, then over to. I haven't watched. My son's watched Tiger King. He says it's the depravity of human existence, right? it's like a train wreck you can't stop watching. It's like no, duh. Okay, all right. So all right. So that's great. Well, thank you, Janet. That's awesome, and thanks for jumping in and joining us. That's perfect. Now that kind of leads me a little bit. So we spent some time yesterday on legal issues, right? So. What is this force majeure, right? What can I point to in a contract? What can a buyer use as an out of the contract? Steve's situation Steve Prather's situation that he brought up earlier. Can the buyer, right, now who already is past their loan approval deadline come back and say, I can't get approved because they couldn't verify because I've been furloughed and I'm out of a job, right? What does the contract have to say about that, right? And the reality is, Florida Realtors has a white paper and a video out on what they believe about force majeure in this. And the answer is, in a best case scenario, it's unsettled case law. In a worst case scenario, it is not considered force majeure, right? Force majeure, if you read the fine print on force majeure, and we have a class on force majeure, usually we usually don't do it this early. We do it usually in June, July, and August when the first hurricane gets in the box, right? And we have to start talking about, okay, what if we have to extend this automatically? Are there any automatic extensions built into the contract based upon, now, the one that everybody wants to point to right now is an act of God, right? But the issue is that there has not been a total devastation of our industry where grace is still lending, title companies are still closing, appraisers are still appraising, all that's still happening. So is there a true cease of doing business? Now, the fact that someone loses their job, while we are sympathetic to that, does that change anything in the contract? Well, as of right now, our opinion is no, right? That they still would be, hey, you know what? It is what it is. The contract says it. Now, flash forward 3 years from now when we're settling all these cases around contracts that canceled during the great quarantine of 2020, right? Is there going to be judges that will come out and say, yeah, I lost a deal to, because I was a buyer and so I'm going to rule in favor of the buyer. Is there a judge that's going to say I was a seller and someone canceled on me and I lost, 12% of my equity, but it took me, 6 months to get that equity back. So boom, I rule in favor of the seller. So there is no settled case law is what I'm telling you. So we can't dispense any information to our clients saying, oh yeah, you can get out without any repercussion, right? Or because we got sellers wanting to do that as well. Why? Because they don't have anywhere to move, right? They were thinking, oh, it'd be easy to go find another place to move. So now they're thinking, I don't have a place to move, even though they do, but they don't want to, right? Go through the process of doing it. So here is Florida Realtors' position is it doesn't it does not constitute force majeure, right? So instead, what they did, and why I recorded that video so quickly, is they came out with this COVID-19 extension, right? Now it's called the COVID-19 extension addendum to contract, EAD, right? Now realize that this EAD, extension addendum contract, is one we already have in our files right now. All they did, the two places where I have highlighted yellow here, are just additions to that regular, quote unquote, regular extension addendum. I'm going to focus on this last one here for a minute. All right. I'm going to bring you back in so I can see some of your faces. Can everybody see that on my screen? Yes. Okay, good. All right. Here's my concern about this extension. First of all, realize it's an extension addendum. It is to be used on an already existing contract. Everybody understands that, right? We got a contract in play. The parties, it looks like the buyer might have some issues with financing, even though we're past the loan approval deadline. So we all agree, hey, let's give ourselves 30 days and see how this fleshes out, right? Well, that's great. And you can sign an extension if both parties agree. And by the way, that is our suggestion for all parties, right? Hey, look, we already got somebody in contract. Buyer wants to buy. They just want to get a feel for what's going on with their job situation and everything else. Not exactly sure how this is all going to play out. So let's do an extension so we can extend some of this. Well, here's the concern. From a buyer's perspective, this paragraph is awesome, right? From a seller's perspective, you've got to be very careful to have a seller, agree to sign this, right? As a matter of fact, we are requiring if we represent the seller and the sellers are electing to sign this extension addendum with this COVID specific data in there, then they have to sign off on our legal notice saying that they have consulted their own attorney regarding signing this. Because it's that, in my opinion, damaging to a seller. It says all other non-conflicting terms of the contract remain in full force, except if buyer has obtained approval for the loan, right? So they have a loan, Grace, right? They've had a loan, it's all approved, and the terms, conditions of the loan approval expire or lender refuses to fund the loan due to COVID restrictions. Meaning, what does that mean? Means that they did their 2 days before closing checkup to make sure they're still employed, found out they're furloughed, and they said, no, we're not going to loan. We're not going to fund that loan now, right?
It's one-sided, yeah.
Yeah. And so then the buyer now has an automatic out, if you read it further, and says the buyer gets their money back. Well, again, fine if we represent the buyer, right? Not so fine if we encourage the seller to sign this, because a seller, by agreeing to this, is giving away some of their already obtained rights under the original contract. All right. And so because of that, a seller may want to sign this, but if they do, they have to sign it under their own free will. And after having consulted or had the right to consult with an attorney regarding the ramifications of signing it, right? Here is Future Home Realty. And since I am Future Home Realty at the head, right? I will say, here is my dictum on this, right? If we're going to extend, which I encourage extensions if we're up against some dates, right? If we're up against dates, let's extend and try and keep this thing going, right? If you represent the buyer, go ahead and use this, right? It does give your buyer some rights, a lot more rights, and it gives them the right to get a refund of their money and kind of, wash their hands if they cannot close, right? If you represent the seller, I suggest you use the quote unquote regular extension addendum, which is just the EAD1 under Florida Realtors, which does not have this COVID language in it, which still says all other terms of the contract are in play. And if the buyer doesn't close because they all of a sudden the lender refused to lend, we'll have to hash that out later in court if we're going to fight about it. But we're not going to give this automatic waiver of the seller's rights to say, hey, look, I'm waiving my rights to any earnest money and procure or specific performance and so on and so forth. Does that make sense, everybody? I'm going to look at some head nods here. Yes, everybody. Head nods. Yes. Thumbs up from Jason. Good. Appreciate that. All right. People I can't see. Everybody got that.
But
Abigail says, what do you mean? What's a contract? That's all right. That's awesome.
But,
Steve.
Yeah, just in the case that I brought up,
yep.
Regular extension might be really good for my seller because he got a great price on this house.
Yep.
And if this person, I mean, is there a regular extension only 30 days or can it be longer?
No, it could be any amount, right? You can do any amount. As a matter of fact, if you look at the regular extension, right? By the way, let's take a look at this, the body of this, right? It's a multiple choice. What are we extending?
Yeah.
Right? The closing date, the financing period, the inspection period. So this is a good one to use if you're doing these other things, right? Normally.
Yeah.
The title curative period, feasibility study, that normally is, that's basically the inspection period for a commercial deal. Or your land, sorry, due diligence is for commercial, and so on. Homeowners condo association approval. By the way, that may, because a lot of these boards, by the way, real fast, aren't meeting, right?
Yeah.
Now, and so if they're not meeting, how does a buyer get approved for a condo association if the HOA board is not meeting? And so what we are promoting is let the contract control what's going to happen, right? And pay attention if there are dates that you need to extend, then extend those dates, but don't do so by giving a waiver to the buyer to get an automatic get out of jail free card. Unless you represent the buyer and you're trying to, we've had listing agents from other companies provide this addendum to our people, and my agent says, well, should I have the buyer sign it? I said, yeah, I mean, go for it. I mean, if I were the listing agent, I wouldn't certainly be, initiating this document because it's basically killing his seller's rights to go after any money after the fact, right? But Steve, to answer your question, you do represent the seller. I would use the regular one. extend to whatever both parties agree to, right?
Yeah.
Give everybody some more time. If you give yourself 45 days, say, hey, let's just reset the clock here, right? Realize that maybe this borrower is unfurloughed by then. They'll have to get a new rate lock, I'm sure, right? Because their rate lock had expired if they had been locked, and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
there's options for that. You can extend, or you can pay for an extension. Sometimes you can relock if the rates are better. It's not always a terrible thing, but they may require one pay stub is all I'm thinking,
right,
to prove you're back at work. So
yeah, and we might have to just, let's go 30 days. Oh,
yeah.
Now we're up against another 30. Let's go another 30 days, right? It's kind of like how long we're going to be quarantined, right?
Right.
Let's go. Let's go another. Just another 2 weeks. All right. We'll flatten that curve. So, again, total unknowns here, right? But let me put my faith in your faith in me, right? There's nobody to go through an unknown situation with than me. Okay. I'm your guy. All right. I can guide you through this. I'm paying attention to it all. I'm going to help guide you the best way. And every time an individual case comes up, reach out to us. That's what I do, right? Like I told you, some of these Stephen Mnuchin's rolling up his sleeves saying, hey, this is what I do. I fix economies, right? I'm saying, here's what I do. I help agents wield their way through sticky situations, right? And I can help you through this. I'm not saying, hey, look, I'm going to rely on past experience of a pandemic. I've never been through one, right? But I can utilize my experience in other things to help you through and how those other experiences may apply to this case and so on and so forth. And we've got people like Grace and other people to do it. Pamela.
Yeah, I listened to the town hall with Barry Miller last week, and I believe his agency has put out a form that is different than this one. Now, I can look back in my records.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'll double check and I'll email it to you, and you can do with it as you want.
Okay, perfect. That is fantastic. To that end, there have been, and just be aware, those of you who have listings, I was going to bring up one other form that an agent emailed me. This is a Coldwell Banker. Now this, instead of being, let me get to it. Spot. All right. So ignore the names. I should have whited those out or blacked those out. This was submitted with an offer. So do you guys see the difference, right? The other one I just went through was an extension of an already existing contract, right? This one is something that's brought along with the offer. And in essence, I won't make you read the whole thing. I just want you to be aware of it. All right. If you start to see any of these on any listings you have in particular, this is in essence making COVID a force majeure issue. All right. What it's doing is saying, hey, look, the Florida contract kind of missed the pandemic part of force majeure. So we're going to go ahead and include it now, right? So they kind of cut and pasted a lot of the force majeure language in this paragraph and dropped it in and made it specific to COVID. My, again, suggestion is do not sign, right? There is no settled case law on this. Florida Realtors, Florida Bar contract is satisfactory. I don't want to get into automatic extensions. I would much rather rely on our solid, tried and true one we know contract, the FHR bar, right? And then extend as needed, as we just discussed with Steve's situation, right? Rather than have these automatic, because then once you start having all these automatic extensions built in, you're really tying parties in for longer than they had intended. And that's when we're going to get ourselves in trouble because we don't understand the full ramification of it. Are you with me? Has anybody out there seen anything like this come through on any of their offers? Nope. Okay. Just be aware that I've seen a couple now that have come through, and this sounds, I don't know if this is coming from Coldwell Banker on high, and so you'll see it more from Coldwell Banker offices in general, but just be aware if you get any creative language, right? Goes back to my rule. Anytime you start to write something on a contract that exceeds 10 words, put the pen down, right? Okay. Anytime you see another agent who has typed in anything in the additional terms greater than 10 words, red flags should go up. all right, about, hey, isn't there a rider for this? Why are we rewriting something that could have just been done, approved by Florida realtors in general? Fair enough. All right. And then the last thing is, any of this stuff, right? If a client reaches out to you, say, hey, what are my options about getting out of this contract? Okay. The only option that we suggest is for them to consult their own legal counsel. Everybody understands that? All right. And this is being recorded, so I can always prove that I told you so. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's our advice, is we're not attorneys. And if you're looking to not perform on an already existing contract, then you need to consult legal counsel and have them advise you as to how you should go about doing that. And it should be the same person that's prepared to defend you in the case that the other side disagrees with that. Cool? Very good. All right, we're about right on time. Does anybody have any last questions I can answer before we
I have
off?
a couple of questions.
Yeah, Joanne.
I raised my hand. I guess you didn't see it.
Oh, that's all right.
Just
back when I was teaching, I ignored raised hands too. So
I have a listing now. I haven't had much activity on it. We lowered the price a couple of weeks ago, and I've had two people showed it because it's on a lockbox.
Yeah.
And my question is, should we take it down? I saw that there was something that came out that said temporarily off the market or something.
That's you know what? Oh, here's our pat answer on that. Is we want to defer to the client, your seller's wishes, right? If they fully are aware. Is it an occupied property or vacant?
It's vacant right now.
Okay. Vacant property, it's entirely up to them. You can only provide them with the data that we currently have, right? And say, hey, look, we can leave it on the market. The good news is if it's being shown, then at least, it only takes one showing to create an offer. And we can get, that might be, as soon as we take it temporarily off the market, tomorrow might be the day that someone would have wanted that home and have done it. But if they think, I'm not so sure about what values are going to do or whatever, then just again, whatever their wishes may be. I'll tell you, there are a lot of people doing that. So one advantage of keeping it on the market is that we still have a inventory issue, right? We've got a lack of supply. We still have that. And so our demand has dropped a little bit because people are going to, ride this out some. But once we, again, remove that gate and let the water start flowing, then I think those who have their houses already on the market ready to roll are going to be overrun pretty quickly. Okay. So it would be up to them. And I don't know if I would monitor some of our Facebook pages as well to get some opinions of some other people of what they're experiencing on showings on certain properties. And I know it's going to vary case by case, right? Each property.
And I have a second question.
Sure.
I have a lady that I'm going to be listing her house. And she said to me yesterday, I heard from a friend of hers that the houses aren't selling right now. Should we wait to list it? And somebody else asked her if she wanted to rent it, which she didn't want to rent it. Mm-hmm. So I told her that I heard through different people that I've been, listening to on conference calls that the title companies are still closing deals and there's still people that are buying. So,
deals are getting done. That's without a doubt. Deals are getting done. Again, I would health and safety of the seller, occupied or unoccupied property.
It's unoccupied, and she's still working on a few things, so it's not ready.
Yeah, I'd seen again because of the lack of supply. It may actually be an advantage to be on the market right now because a lot of people are taking the other tact and another opinion. But then I would monitor the showings and any offers that do come in. If you're getting, a bottom feeding situation and she's not in a position where she has to sell to a bottom feeder, then you could just monitor that and say, hey, look, let's just ride it out. The good news is I think, as much as we, Grace, how long you said you've been quarantined? 5.5 weeks?
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right. She was on the forefront of this, and that's great. And she's all good. Most of us are, 2.5, 3 weeks, 3.5 maybe weeks into this, right? And as far as the repercussions, and as quickly as it's funny. My pet answer used to be, time flies. All right. And my only caveat, that's time flies, except when you're on a rowing machine, right? If you want 40 minutes to feel like 4 hours, get on a rowing machine. All right. That's my pet answer. Right. Or if you want, sometimes time doesn't fly so much when I'm, not able to leave the houses as often and so on and so forth. So, that's why I said this is making me realize my only 3 hobbies I have are eating out. What was it? There's 3 things: eating out, something else, and going to non-essential businesses.
Right.
Working out. Don't you work out every day, Bob?
Oh yeah, I got an appointment with my Concept 2 rowing machine right after this. It's all good stuff. That's why I know how long 40 minutes is. It feels like 4 hours. I get off, I'm like, holy smokes! I listened to 4 songs already. Those must have been the extended mixes of those songs, because I look up and I think it's got to be 20 minutes now, and I look and it's like 8. I'm like, what in the world? Because I try and not look at the clock as I'm doing it, and like my clock is like, yeah. So that's all right. That's how I can keep my body running and the twinkle in my eye as I go on. So it's all good. And Hope, I know you're working out on a consistent basis.
Twice a day. It's like I got this anxiety, pent up energy. I got to go out there.
See,
Twice
that's
a day.
it. You got to start. You should make those Facebook lives so our group can follow you. And
I
do
want
your
to do
workouts
one
along
with you.
Want to go on a nature walk?
That's right. See, you should. Right, take us along with you. That's great.
Okay.
It's all good. You can do it. You can do Zoom on your phone. It's kind of fun. So people are getting all sorts of creative. I've seen communities meeting at having a virtual fire pit, right, and after hours, and people celebrating birthday parties and all that kind of stuff.
I played Settlers of Catan with another couple, my husband and I did, via
That's awesome.
Skype. And so they set up their board at their house and we set up our board at our house the same exact way. And we just went around and took our turns, just like
That's
that.
awesome.
Really
See?
cool.
It's truly amazing how that, again, physical distancing, yes, social distancing, no, right? We can still interact and do all this stuff. So it's fantastic to do. The meme I was thinking of, that, and please don't be offended if you're into essential oils, but I saw one that said millions of people around the world are very upset that essential oils are now considered non-essential.
Except for lavender, because
That's right. Exactly. Too fun. There you go. See, that's why you guys are so calm. It's the lavender in you.
Lavender.
Yeah,
Give me some, Dave. Send it over.
Too good. Very good. All right. Very good. We got it, Grace. All right, cool. Any questions I can answer for you before we sign off? Anything else? It really is good to see you guys. It really is. I'm telling you, it does my heart good. Know this, and it's a small group, so I'm allowed to say this, and I think you guys know me well enough that as a collective, I pray for you guys daily. I know what everybody's going through as individual small business owners, as parents, as grandparents, as all your other roles, and how this has changed everything. All right, so I do. In my daily prayer, you are on my list to make sure I pray for you guys as a collective, that you'll. One last thing, and I've shared this in the other groups. Great pastor that I follow encouraged us to do 2 things. He said, hey, look, there is legitimate concern, right? And illegitimate worry, right? Legitimate concern are things, and he puts them into buckets of things that I can control, right? Can I control whether I'm going to socially or physically distance myself and wash my hands and follow the rules and do all those kind of things? Yes, I should be legitimately concerned about things that are in my control, right? But I don't want to have when it crosses the line to illegitimate or irrational worry about things that I have absolutely zero control over, right? That's when I got to really check myself, maybe spray a little lavender, right? And say, calm yourself down. All right. It's all going to be okay. And let's control the things we can. Let's be concerned about the things we can control, but let's not overly worry about things that we can't. I mean, are they going to cure this thing in Italy? Right? Is out of our control. right? So no need to worry about that. Control what you can, right? Okay, be concerned about that, but don't just mind that line and make sure we don't jump from one to the other. Cool. I'd love to see you guys at our virtual office hours as well. It does my heart good to see faces. So it's always fun to have that. And as always, if you need anything, reach out, right? We are here to help. Anything we can help from a myriad of stuff, and let us know if there's anything we can do. Cool?
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye,
See you guys.
everybody.
All right.
So,
Have an awesome day.
Bye. Thank you, Grace.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Great
You guys
information.
are all awesome. It's great to see you.